So before the video begins, guys, I just want to encourage you to give this a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Right now, I think less than 30% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed. So if you haven't already, make sure you do that and enjoy the video. What's up, guys? So today, this weapon I have not talked about before. I don't think ever really on my channel. I only feel more comfortable now talking about it because I actually played the weapon for a bit and I really learned Onyx and whatnot. So today we're going to talk about a weapon that had a bit of a rise and demise and right now could possibly be the worst weapon in the game, which is Canon. So Canon is very strange because there was a period where when it first came out, I remember everyone was like, oh, okay, this is a cool concept, the idea. It's going to be more ranged. It's going to be a weapon that has a lot of maybe a heavier type, right? Well, and then on release they kind of threw a huge curveball because everything that Canon did was not very Canon-esque aside from the Nair and the Enlight mainly. Other than that though, the Canon was just pretty much slaps in the face. I guess the ground pound too you can include. So more recently what they did was they decided to rework Canon, which in the end kind of has hurt it a lot because they really made the experimental Canon when they first were testing out the reworks of it and whatnot. They made it really solid because they obviously didn't want to turn people away from the idea of a rework, I'm pretty sure. However, with that being said, I think something that is important to note is that on release they tuned it back probably way too hard. It didn't really make much sense as to why. I get why they did. They didn't want people to not play it, right? Which is probably why they had it be as good as it was in experimental. But then when it came time to release it, it was honestly tuned back so hard it's insane. I wish I had the data in front of me of that patch, but I just remember it was ridiculous on things like Dare and Sidelight, just what they did to it. To be fair, at that point in time, Canon did have a 3-piece true combo that could be hit on, I think, just about any character, which is obviously that's way too much. Now Canon still does have one in D-Light, Side Air into Recovery, I believe. However, it's the rework overall, that string in particular is fine, or that combo, considering it's one of the few really solid things about it, I would say. I'll go over that more later into what I think is actually oh, we got him, nice. I'll go into later what I think is actually good about the kit, but for now, the negative, which I would say is the fact that a big one for me that stands out to me currently is the Enlight. If we're talking moves themselves, Enlight just feels very bad. And I talked to Sandstorm actually earlier today and he was yeah, also the Sidelight, it's actually worse than it was before. And I get what he means because it's okay, well, the Sidelight buff was good in the sense that it allowed consistent follow-ups. However, Canon already currently with how Enlight is and how it gets out prioritized struggles against, say, just about any other weapon that's slightly quicker, right? It's kind of hard to justify playing Canon right now when you can play things that can provide 3-piece true combos or easy reads that are also just faster coming out. So it's definitely a interesting thing with the weapon. Sure, you have these really dangerous strings. If you don't know, I think that's where the main problem comes in. People think Canon's okay because they don't know how to play against it. Now, to elaborate on that point a little bit, when I say people don't know how to play against it still, I feel Canon's so rarely seen, especially at high level. It's kind of like Lance, where maybe nowadays more people are playing it, but especially when Canon was first a thing, and even now, I would say still, it's a weapon that just isn't seen a lot because it does require, it is an investment, to say the least, right? like at top level 2, we're probably going to see a lot of great swords at first. But then over time, I think great swords are probably going to die down. And then you're going to have the few people who are actually really dedicated to the weapon that are going to be possibly finding success with it. And who knows, what if great sword turns out to be bad? Then we may not even see that many people either. But what I was getting at is Canon kind of, you know, you're probably going to see like something very reminiscent of how like Canon's life cycle has gone. It's just people don't know how to dodge against it, like, still. And the lack of practice really is the contributing factor. I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Now, if people knew how to actually, like, move against it and what weapons can actually be played into Canon, which are, feels like just about everything. I get told by Sandstorm, who I guess a lot of people, and I would consider to be the Canon, like, god. He has won a multitude of tournaments, and especially in 2s, he just makes Canon so prevalent. I mean, he is like the, I don't want to say the only Zol player. He's definitely not, but yeah, he is like the one guy, so I trust what he's saying. He says that the one thing Canon can do good into is Lance, and that makes you really wonder, because it's like, okay, well, at the very least, at least Canon has like a purpose, right? It can beat Lance at that, but I feel like that's a very, just because it can possibly beat Lance, which at the end of the day, I think that just comes down to like matchup knowledge and how comfortable you are as a player into someone else. I don't know. Canon is just one of those strange things. So to go on about what I was talking about last game with how Canon seems to be really good because people don't know how to dodge against it. When you think about it, Canon really only thrives when it is catching your dodges consistently. And to be honest, especially with like the new sidelight and just like the new kit in general, like with the reworked moves, Dare, I would say Dare is definitely like stronger, if not equal, probably more on the side that it's like equal to its previous iteration. However, sidelight and Endlight are both just flat out worse. So if you're getting caught consistently by Canon dodges, definitely take that as a sign of not Canon being good, but you just have a very, I don't want to say lack of awareness. I feel like that's a bit too harsh, but you just don't know what exactly the options are, because the stuff you see like top Canon players do with like the 0 to deaths and stuff, which some, like I said, because of the move changes, are a lot harder to do now anyways. It's just very like, it all comes from one dodge. It's like, okay, they get that one dodge that over and over again, that bad dodge people keep doing just simply because they don't know what to do. So it's just like, okay, if people were a little wiser with how they just moved around, I think Canon would end up proving to be just such an easy weapon for them to actually work around. Moving on though, I talked about the moves, like pretty much the only one, Dare, possibly is better just because it has that blast in front. However, the onstage version of Dare definitely seems to be, at least in my opinion. Now, like I said, wasn't a huge Canon player back when it first came out, but as time went on, you know, I tried to become more comfortable with Onyx, and now I feel like I just have some knowledge that doesn't really get used. But anyways, that's how it is sometimes, and I think that yeah, Dare's the only move that is better. Sidelight, the change they made where they removed the force, in this case, I guess it can kind of depend. I mean, I'm sure there's varying opinions on whether or not that was a buff or nerf. I remember when the sidelight buff was first announced to remove the force, right? Or I don't want to say buff necessarily, but the change. People were very on the side of, oh, this is going to make Canon insane. But I've been harping on Canon a lot. I mean, there still are things that I think are solid about it. Now, when it comes to like what game modes it can do well in, it can do well in both 1s and 2s. However, I would say probably the most qualified 2v2 character out of the Canon bunch is Zol. And a main reason is that high strength kind of makes up for some of the lack of like direct kill power you have with Canon moves. Also, to be fair, the character does have Axe. So if you are an Axe player, I mean, you might just pick Zol simply for that fact. Not to mention the Ensig. Also, very, very strong in 2v2s. In 1v1s, I mean, you can play any Canon character, I think, currently. I don't think one is inherently way more insane than the others. I mean, again, Zol's probably like a popular go-to. It's kind of the same thing like with Artemis, in my opinion. Now, I don't know how popular Artemis actually is, but Artemis does have that Lance, which I think is one of the easiest weapons in the game, and then you combine that with Scythe, which I think is one of the harder weapons to master and really like do good with, and you just have like a super solid contrast, and that completely backfired on him. That was actually insane. Ended up happening, but anyways, yeah, so it's definitely playable. I don't think anything's not playable in current meta. Although, I mean, I know Sandstorm definitely disagrees with that part. He thinks that Canon is just flat out unplayable, which maybe he is right. Like, I've played Canon once in tournament, and that was actually in summer 1v1s when I was in losers quarters versus Costelix. And that was basically me giving up. I don't want to make it sound like I just picked Canon to kind of throw the match, but I was just kind of over it, and it also was just very, very, very hard for me to play it. So I can only imagine, you know, the one guy aside from like Boomy who's really gone insane with Canon, gotten super good results. Like, I can only imagine the struggles he has to go through to even make that weapon work, and how much harder he's probably working to make it work. But aside from like the 1v1 2v2 part of it, there still are like really solid qualities. I think moves like Nair and like doing GC Light is super strong. Nair in particular, I mean, again, I feel like that's another thing. Wow, this guy's got a lot of reads on me. I think it's another thing that people just don't know how to play against a weapon. So what happens is they get hit by one Nair, and then they just let the Nairs just continue to pile up over and over again because they're just trying to like instantly like move out of the way and fast fall. And Canon Nair on hit is very, very solid. You can definitely rack up a lot of damage very, very quick if your opponent definitely gets stuck in the air. Now, like I said, GC D-Light is also, I think, a stronger component of the kit. However, though, to be completely fair and honest, you got to remember that that is burning gravity cancel, or burning your dodge by using the gravity cancel. So sure, you may, you may get the setup for like a Sarah into recovery, which, like I said earlier, is a 3-piece true combo. However, the risk is there that you could get punished for that, and if you do get punished, I mean, that's just no good. Like, having to rely on a GC constantly definitely is not the play. All right, so this is gonna be the last game, and I guess I'll kind of just go back and reiterate my thoughts. I mean, Canon right now definitely not in a strong state. I think if you do think that, just think about how much experience you have against the weapon and how much that biases you, because that definitely always plays a factor in. I mean, everyone has their opinions. This is just my thoughts, and I know some of you are gonna agree and some of you are gonna disagree, but it's just a weapon that the amount of work you have to put in, it does have its true combos and it does have its strengths. However, it does have its struggles, and the cons definitely seem to be outweighing the pros currently, especially with what's popular in the current meta. All these big weapons that in 2 hits you're doing 30 plus damage, whereas Canon's main purpose is to get that big string constantly, and that's kind of relying on your opponent just being stupid for the most part with their dodge. And so, that creates problems in itself as to, like I said earlier, if your opponent actually knows how to play against Canon, well, okay, now you're kind of just relying on these really, really bad single hit moves that just get out prioritized and are just slower than other moves, on like gauntlets or bow or katars, for example. The one matchup, though, like I said, that Sandstorm does think is really, really solid is into Lance. Now, when I have played Canon into Lance, which hasn't been a ton, it's been okay. I mean, I did play it, like I said, into Costelix in Summer Champs, and it went horrible, but at that point, I was kind of like already done mentally with the set, so I don't use that as a, what would you call it? I wouldn't use that as a way to like tell how like good it actually is. I think it's definitely a unique weapon, and I think that at some point, you know, there is a patch that is going to be soon. I think we can definitely expect to possibly see some changes. Now, I don't know if those changes would be enough to just fix the core issues with like the design of the moves, which funny enough, you know, they did do those redesigns and it still seems like the issues are very prevalent. I said earlier, the sidelight seems to be a bit of a touchy one because, you know, at first people thought it was going to be so good. And then what happened? Like, you know, it felt like nothing changed with results of people, with what they could really get off. Like, you can definitely get the sidelight into Sarah still, or more consistently. But now it's like one less way to possibly kill your opponent when you're relying on single hits a lot of the times with this weapon, because you know, if your opponent, like I said, has a bit of a brain and knows how to play against it, it's just, it can be really rough. But yeah, maybe they'll give Enlight more range down the line. That is a dangerous thing though, because if they go any higher in the range than like what old Canon Enlight was, then you're actually entering territories of this weapon being just really, really bonkers. Same with like Darren's sidelight. Like, we don't want the weapon to be how it was, just with new animations. I mean, maybe we do. Maybe that is the fix, you know? Maybe that is the play, because Canon is a hype weapon to watch. I don't want to see it just sit and rot away while everyone is like learning Greatsword and just like playing all these other weapons. I think it definitely can find its place in this game. It's not like super weird. I mean, I've always said like the animations can look kind of clunky, but especially with the changes, that helped a lot. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. And let's just see. I need to close this one out. Right there, I think is a good example also. Okay, it actually killed. So I appreciate everyone watching, and I definitely want to know what you guys think of Canon in the comments. I think it's a weapon that will find its place at some point. It just needs some tuning, and it's going to happen at some point. I'm very, very confident in that. And whether it's next balance patch or, you know, the one after, who knows? Only BMG knows. I have no idea. So thanks for watching, guys. See ya.